Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, June 7th, 2024. And if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Friday, Major League Baseball. First up, the Apple TV game between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Minnesota Twins. Joe Ryan and Mitch Keller are your starters. We know Joe Ryan really struggled in that last game against the Astros where he gave up 4 home runs and 5 earned runs in a 5-2 Astros win. Definitely, Ryan's had some issues with the home run ball throughout his career here and there. Wasn't really too much of an issue so far this season, but 4 home runs in one game, that is, tough to watch. And it's tough to have a lot of faith in his game in this spot, especially with Mitch Keller on the other side, who's in great form right now for the Pirates. His last 5 games, he's given up 2 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those starts. They all ended up being Pirates victories as well, and they had some nice wins against Milwaukee, Atlanta, Toronto. His strikeout numbers have kind of fluctuated. He's less than a strikeout per inning this season, but he had 8 strikeouts in 6 innings of work in that last game against the Blue Jays. Only the 1 run given up and no home runs given up in his last 4 starts. So he's in great form. I don't love this Pirates bullpen, so I'm just going to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates in the first 5 innings, but I do think they win the full game as well. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Detroit Tigers. Reese Olson for Detroit, no official starter for the road team. Olson, I know the Tigers have lost a majority of his starts this year, but he has been excellent at home this season with 27 2/3 innings of .65 ERA baseball, right around a strikeout per inning, no home runs given up. I do think the Tigers can back them up enough here. The Brewers, like I said, no official starter. We'll see if it's a bullpen game. For me, this Brewers bullpen right around the middle of the pack in terms of, ERA, expected numbers as well. I'm going to lean towards Detroit in this game. We'll have to wait and see who the official starter is to get a better idea where this number is going to be. But I'll take the Detroit Tigers on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Washington Nationals. Chris Sale and Jake Irvin are your starters. Chris Sale got crushed in that last game against the Oakland Athletics. It was really surprising because he was in great form. In the month of May, 32 innings, 45 strikeouts, a .56 ERA, certainly the best pitcher in the month of May. No home runs given up, 2 walks. The Braves were 5-0 in his games, a lot of shutouts and big blowout wins, all run line covers for Atlanta. And then he gave up the 8 earned runs and 2 home runs to the A's. It's just such a head scratcher. 11-9 the final score in favor of Oakland, but to me, while it's concerning to see that kind of outing from any starting pitcher, I still think Sale has a good chance of bouncing back in this one. The Nationals, not an easy lineup to face, but I do think when you look at their numbers against lefties in the last month, they have really struggled. They had a good start to the season against Southpaws, but they have not been great recently. Jake Irvin on the other side has also not been great at home this year, where he's 0-4 with a 4.91 ERA. I'd much rather back him when he's on the road, where he's got a 2.68 ERA and a winning record. So give me the Atlanta Braves in this one. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up, the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see Cole Irvin and Aaron Savale as the projected starters. Now, we've kind of been following this trend here with the Tampa Bay Rays, who have been solid against left-handed starting pitching, where we've taken the Rays on the money line when they're facing a lefty starter. And I think we're actually hitting 3 in a row right now. And obviously not a huge sample size, but we took them against Cole Irvin and the Orioles back on June 2nd. Ended up being a 4-3 Tampa Bay win. Then against Jesus Luzardo and the Marlins on June 4th, a 9-5 Tampa Bay victory. And then the last game against the Marlins on June 5th against Braxton Garrett, another 5-3 Tampa Bay victory. So 3-0 in our last Rays money line, selections when they're facing a lefty. They're facing the same lefty here in Irvin. I think they can get to him for a few runs. And, they certainly had a lot of opportunities against him, even though they didn't score a ton of runs off him, per se. 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings. They had 8 base hits and a walk and a home run with only 1 strikeout in those 6 1/3. So I think the Rays get to Irvin. Savale, while he's not my favorite option, he pitched pretty well against these Orioles in that last game, and he's been a lot better at Tropicana Field than he has been on the road. So I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Rays in this one. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're going to continue to take the Rays on the money line when they're facing a left-handed starting pitcher. Next up, the Chicago Cubs taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Justin Steele and Nick Lodolo, pair of lefties on the mound in this one. I've mentioned I don't love backing Lodolo at Great American Ballpark, but his last home start was excellent. 5 1/3 innings, 1 run against the Cardinals. Solid lineup, recently, and that was a 3-1 Reds victory in the end. And, Justin Steele, while he had a really good outing against the Brewers back on May 27th, Didn't follow it up with a great start in that last game against these Cincinnati Reds. Now, he only gave up 1 earned run, but still 4 unearned runs, 7 base hits, 4 walks to go with it. The control's still been off, and a lot of base runners. That is concerning for me, even though the Cubs went on to win that game 7-5. Now on the road at Great American, the Cubs are still 1-4 in his last 5 starts. Lodolo's in good form, and I think when you look at the Reds, they've really improved against left-handed pitching recently. In the last 30 days now, they're number 5 in baseball in team OPS against southpaws with a very low strikeout rate and a high walk rate, 11.6%. So give me the Cincinnati Reds in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Miami Marlins. Logan Allen and Ryan Weathers are your starters. So another game with 2 lefties on the mound. I know Logan Allen got crushed in that last game at Coors Field, but again, a young pitcher at Coors Field, not a lot of Coors Field experience. It wasn't too surprising to see him struggle, but now he has a good spot here to bounce back. He's been better on the road overall this season. He's facing a Marlins team in the last 30 days is 28th in team OPS against lefties. Very low walk rate, decent, high strikeout rate, not a great isolated power. So I think the Marlins do struggle here offensively. Allen should be able to give him 5 to 6 decent innings, and then you hand it over to one of the best bullpens in baseball. And, Ryan Weathers, while he's been solid overall this year with a 3.41 ERA, certainly, bouncing back in terms of his career this season, kind of surprising, but he's still not pitching too well at Lone Depot Park with an ERA above 5, similar to another lefty in this rotation in Braxton Garrett. You're facing a Guardians team that's hit lefties very well this season, especially recently. And like I mentioned, the Guardians have a big-time bullpen advantage in this game, in this series. Give me the Cleveland Guardians in this one, the money line and run line. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Texas Rangers. Logan Webb and Michael Lorenzen, not Logan Allen, on the mound in this one. Logan Webb struggled a bit in that game against the Yankees at Oracle Park, but really, he still went 7 innings. He had 6 strikeouts. It was just a couple of mistake pitches, and that's enough for the Yankees these days. Aaron Judge, you make 1 mistake pitch, it's going about 450 feet to left field. So, we saw that against the Yankees in that start for Logan Allen, but he's still a guy that does a pretty good job of keeping the ball on the ground. The Rangers, the 10th highest ground ball percentage in baseball this season, so it's not a miserable matchup here, even though it's on the road, where we know Webb is a lot better at home than he is on the road. I think Webb can give the Giants 6 to 7 decent innings, and he is an efficient starting pitcher. Doesn't really strike out a ton of guys, even though recently his strikeout numbers have picked it up quite a bit. So he's able to go, 6, 7, 8 innings sometimes, and that really helps this Giants bullpen, which, while it's struggled this year, is still a bullpen I'm not ready to give up on, as the expected numbers are pretty solid. The Rangers bullpen, on the other hand, not very good. Michael Lorenzen's been in good form right now, but his expected numbers are not very good. So I think the Giants can get to him for a few runs and get to the Rangers bullpen for a few runs. I'm going to go with San Francisco on the money line. Next up, the Boston Red Sox taking on the Chicago White Sox. Cooper Criswell and Garrett Crochet are your starters. Crochet's been excellent recently. We know he pitched really well at the very beginning of the season, struggled a bit with a few rough starts, but then since then, his last 5 games, 2 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those starts. Ton of strikeouts. The control's been a lot better. Only 1 home run given up in the last 5 combined. He's in great form. Obviously, the White Sox are not in great form as a team. They're losing a lot of games recently, so that's why I don't want to take them in the full game. Their bullpen has blown a lot of leads recently. I'd rather just take him in the first 5 innings. I think Crochet pitches well against a Red Sox lineup that has struggled mightily against lefties. They've had a high strikeout rate from the beginning of the year, but now the OPS and ISO numbers near the bottom of the league. Cooper Criswell's been inconsistent recently. He's not been great on the road. So I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox in the first 5 innings. And I don't trust that bullpen, like I said. So maybe if it's a close game late, you could see about taking the Red Sox live on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Kansas City Royals. Bryce Miller and Daniel Lynch are your starters. Bryce Miller's pitched well this year, but mostly at home at T-Mobile Park. On the road, not so much. And he's on the road here. He's at a 4.76 ERA on the road overall this year. It's never easy pitching a Kaufman to begin with, but especially against these 2024 Royals, who have been great offensively pretty much from the beginning of the season, and especially at Kauffman Stadium. And Daniel Lynch, while it's a small sample for him, only 12 innings so far this season, he's pitched pretty well. 2 earned runs given up. His last game against Minnesota was not his best start. Gave up 2 home runs in that game, but that was also on the road and in the only home start for Lynch this season against the defending World Series champions. He went 5 innings of 2-hit shutout baseball with 6 strikeouts. So I'm going to go with the Royals here. I trust their offense more in this game. Give me the Royals on the money line. Next up, the Colorado Rockies taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Austin Gomber faces his former team, and Lance Lynn on the other side for St. Louis. Gomber, of course, was a part of that Nolan Arenado trade a few years back, and he's pitching really well this year. A career year for Gomber, in my opinion. 3.06 ERA at this point in the season, 61 and 2/3 innings. Pretty impressive, but we do expect a lot of regression going forward. We already started to see that in the last game against the Dodgers, and Gomber's expected ERA in the 4s, the FIP in the 5s. I do worry about him going forward. That last game, 3 earned runs, 2 home runs, 3 walks. He was only able to go 3 innings. So that's a concern. The Cardinals have not been excellent against lefties, but I still think they can get to Gomber. And if not, this pretty weak Rockies bullpen, which has been near the bottom of the league in terms of ERA and expected numbers from basically the beginning of the season. So then you look at Lance Lynn. He's really improved recently. I mean, he was not great at the beginning of the season, but now you look at his last 5 starts, he's given up 4 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those games, including 1 earned run or fewer in the last 3 starts. His strikeout numbers have been decent recently. He's keeping the ball on the ground, and he's keeping the Cardinals in games. So I'm going to go with the St. Louis Cardinals in this one, the run line. I think they have a big-time bullpen advantage, but even a starting pitching advantage, and, of course, the lineup at home. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Framber Valdez and Griffin Canning are your starters. I'm going to take a shot here with the Angels. You can take them plus the 1.5 runs or on the money line. I mean, Canning's been keeping the Angels in games. He's been giving up 3 earned runs or fewer in his last 5 starts. Framber, while he's been good, he's not been as dominant as we've seen him in a couple years ago. And, he just got crushed against this Angels team back on May 20th. 8 earned runs, 3 home runs. I think it was 10 base hits or so in a 9-7 Angels win. And, the Angels in the last month, number 2 and number 1 in OPS and isolated power against lefties in baseball, all of baseball. So it's tough to not take this kind of price. I know the Angels bullpen is not very good, but I think it's worth a shot here with the Angels plus the 1.5 runs and on the money line. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the San Diego Padres. Brandon Pfaadt and Michael King are your starters. And this is the kind of matchup that, to me, makes this Friday card quite challenging in Major League Baseball. You got 2 starting pitchers that have been very difficult to read this season. We know they both have a lot of talent, but they've just been, the consistency's been all over the place. I mean, Michael King especially, I've mentioned it from the beginning of the year. He's had a few amazing starts, a few miserable starts, and it's tough to know what you're going to get from him. Now, he's not been great at Petco Park. He's 0-2 with a 5.06 ERA. That is a concern for me, and I think the Diamondbacks can take advantage of that. Brandon Pfaadt, like I've said, he has a lot of potential. We saw what he could do in the postseason. We know he's got decent strikeout stuff. He has just been the consistency. I mean, the Diamondbacks are 3-1 in his last 4 starts, so I think he is improving, and the control's been better. The home run ball kept to a minimum recently, so I think he's trending in the right direction. But for me, I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks in the first 5 innings. I don't love that Diamondbacks bullpen. I think San Diego has the advantage there, so give me Arizona in the first 5 innings. But I do think they win the full game as well. And the final game we're talking about for the Friday card in Major League Baseball is the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Oakland Athletics. Chris Bassett for Toronto, no official starter for Oakland. This Athletics lineup is struggling quite a bit. We know they didn't do much at all offensively in that series against the Mariners this week, and I worry about him here against Bassett, who's improved. It's a rough start to the regular season. He's given up 3 earned runs or fewer his last 5 games. The Blue Jays, it's been a disappointing start to the season, that's for sure, but they're still below 500. But I think they've been a lot more competitive recently, and I think these are kind of 2 teams in different directions right now. It was nice to see the Blue Jays win the final 2 games of that series against the Orioles, and the A's. They after a decent April and beginning to May, they have just kind of fallen off a bit. So I'm going to go with the Blue Jays here and laying the 1.5 runs on the run line. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.